Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
I'm Rabbi P.J. Schwartz, and joined with me is Cantor Devorah Felder-Levy, our accompanist Ian Solomon, and our bat mitzvah this morning, Caitlin Pearl. You're waving to the camera, there you go. And for those who are on live stream, it is so good to have you as well. If you go to the temple website on the calendar event page, you'll see links to our service this morning as well. Couple pieces of housekeeping before we formally begin our service. This morning we are going to be using our prayer book, Mishkan Tefillah, that navy blue prayer book that you saw when you walked in. Throughout the service we are going to be announcing the page numbers in the blue brackets, the blue bracketed page numbers. You can also utilize this service booklet as well to kind of give you a sense of the service order, and there is a printed copy of the Torah and Haftorah portions. We also like to remind everybody that vaccinated individuals are encouraged to wear masks but are not required. Those who are partially vaccinated or unvaccinated are required to wear masks in our sanctuary this morning. And last piece of housekeeping. I know that we are excited to be here to celebrate Kalim, and the best way that we like to be able to celebrate during our service is, instead of applause, active participation. And a lot of you were here last night, so I know you guys can sing. So participate, join us, and we can feel that love and warmth as well as we celebrate Kalim this morning and as we welcome Shabbat. At Congregation Shir Hadash, we begin our services with verses from the Psalms, particularly Hine Matov. Now, for some of you, you may know the words Hine Matov u'Manaim Shevet Achim Gam Yachad. How wonderful it is for our brothers to be together. Achim is that plural Hebrew word that translates as brothers. But here we had the opportunity to have Anat Hoffman, who is the director of the Religious Action Center in Israel, and she taught us a new word. She said, why don't you use kulam? Because kulam means everybody. So how wonderful it is for all of us to be together on this Shabbat morning, to be here to celebrate Kalim, and to lift our voices in song and prayer. Hine Matov is found on page 188.
Hine Matov u'Manaim Shevet kulam gam yachad. Hine Matov u'Manaim Shevet kulam gam yachad.
Continue on page 184. Each of us enters the sanctuary with a different need. Some hearts are full of peace and gratitude, overflowing with love and joy. They are eager to confront the day to make the world a better place. They are recovering from illness or have escaped misfortune. We rejoice with them. Some hearts ache with sorrow, Disappointments weigh heavily on them. Families have been broken. Loved ones lie on a bed of pain. Death has taken a cherished loved one. May our presence and caring bring them comfort. Some hearts are embittered. Ideals are betrayed and mocked. Answers sought in vain. Life has lost its meaning and value. May the knowledge that we, too, are searching restore our hope and renew our faith. We continue on page 186.
מודה אני לפניך, מלך חי וקיים, שחזרת מנשמתי בחמלה, רבה אמונתך, רבה אמונתך, מודה אני לפניך, מלך חי וקיים, שחזרת מנשמתי בחמלה, רבה אמונתך, רבה אמונתך.
We find in the book of Numbers the commandment to wear fringes. And these fringes remind us of all the commandments, all the mitzvot within Judaism that guide us and serve as a blueprint for living. And it is at this time in which Kaylin will receive her own talit, her own fringes, as she becomes a bat mitzvah this morning. So first I'm going to invite up Gordon and Sophia to come up to share some words, to share some words of praise and congratulation to Kaylin, and then present her with her talit.
Kaylin, the last time I was on this bima was for your Hebrew naming ceremony, shortly after you were born. At that time, I told the congregation your survival story of how Mom and I almost lost you at birth. I remember in the hospital, you coming out, not breathing, no sound, and a nurse frantically trying to pump oxygen into your body. Over the weeks, as doctor and nurses frantically worked on you, I remember one day looking at you, and your eyes just opened. The nurses told me it was okay for me to visit you, but I had to put my hand in these tubes. They had to sanitize me. It was pretty complicated. But as I put my hands through the tubes, I was able to touch you for the first time. And I went out to reach you. You moved your hand and grabbed my thumb and wouldn't let go. The nurse said, "This baby is amazing. She is so strong. Look how she grabbed your thumb." I said, "I know. She is quite a fighter to go through this." The nurse said, "We were concerned she wouldn't survive this, but look at her now." And I thought, this baby is so strong, a fighter, that she could survive anything thrown out at her. And Kaylin, that is who you are, a strong person, a fighter and a survivor. Whether that's on the soccer field, where you may knock someone down and then may quickly get up and score a goal, or your fourth grade musical, where someone got sick right before the show was supposed to start and you took over their whole part and all their lines. Where middle school, you made the basketball team, even though you never played organized basketball. You took up cello, and somehow got an award for that when we didn't even know you were doing it. You placed in the school spelling bee. You're a straight A student. You did Thai dancing. I could keep on going on and on. There are so many accomplishments you have done. But no matter what challenge you face, you remain strong, a fighter, and a survivor. Even today in this pandemic, it was uncertain how you would be able to continue your bat mitzvah studies in this COVID-19 environment. You yourself challenging whether this bat mitzvah is something that you still wanted. But there you were, continue to push through and tell me, "Dad, stay strong. It will work out. I got this. Now get out of my room, as I don't want you to see my speeches I am writing." Fight with me on when was the right time to study and practice, making sure I knew you were in charge, not me, and surviving all the obstacles thrown out at you to be able to attend and study for this special day. You remained a strong person, a fighter, and a survivor. Which brings me why I'm up here on stage today. I'm here to present you this talit. This talit I got a few years ago when I was in Israel at a small talit shop. The talit I got you was purple. This one was your brother's. Apparently, me being colorblind and your taste changing from a 10-year-old girl to a 13-year-old young adult, your brother quickly realized that you probably would like his better than the one I got you. And so thank you, Winston, for donating this, giving this to Kaylin today for her bat mitzvah. That small talit shop in Israel, where I got this, was located right outside of the Wailing Wall, the remnants of the old temple in Jerusalem. The Wailing Wall and the old temple is a symbol of how our Jewish faith can overcome destruction and obstacles. But yet throughout history, the Jewish people and the religion has remained strong, always fighting to protect our beliefs and our people and the survivor throughout history. Just like your family and our ancestors, where we had an ancestor who had to leave Ukraine when Russia took over the first time, think Fiddler on the Roof, and remained strong as they came to America. You had ancestors that had similar to leave Poland, Hungary, Austria, to fight for the right to be Jewish. You have grandparents that had to leave their homeland in Thailand and Laos to escape communists when they were coming to take over, and came here to the United States to raise 2 children and survive. You come from a legacy of strong people, fighters, and survivors. Some of them are calling us right now. As you wear this talit, I want you to recognize, as you enter the world of being a young adult, you will have many challenges thrown out at you. There will be days when you will feel like your voice is not being heard. There will be days when you feel like you do not matter. What you say may not matter. But I want you to always remember that you are a strong person that has the tools to handle any challenges you face. A fighter that will raise your voice to make sure your viewpoints are heard. And a survivor that will be able to overcome any obstacles in life and be able to create and set your own path. After all, Kaylin, that is who you are, a strong person, a fighter, and a survivor. We're proud of you. Now I got to figure out how to give this to you. There you go.
As I wrap myself in the talit, I fulfill the mitzvah of my Creator. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu, lehidateh, batzitzit. We continue with Ma Tovu on page 192.
Yaakov,
We are continuing on page 195.
Don't let me fall, as a stone falls upon the hard ground, and don't let my hands become dry as the twigs of a tree. When the wind beats down the last leaves, and when the storm raises dust from the earth with anger and howling, don't let me fall. I have asked for so much, but as a blade of your grass in a distant wild field, let's drop a seed in the lap of the earth and dies away. Sow me in your living breath as you sow a seed in the earth. Baruch atah Adonai, rofech kol bazar umafli lazo.
Amen. We continue on the next page.
Elohai, Elohai, neshama, neshama, shenatata bi, tehorahi, tehorahi. Elohai, Elohai, neshama, neshama, shenatata bi, tehorahi, tehorahi. Elohai, Elohai, neshama, neshama, shenatata bi, tehorahi, tehorahi. Elohai, Elohai, neshama, neshama, shenatata bi, tehorahi, tehorahi.
We continue on page 204 for the blessing for studying Torah. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kichanu v'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. O Adonai our God, let the words of Torah be sweet in our mouths, and the mouths of your people Israel, so that we, our descendants and the descendants of all your people Israel, may know you by studying your Torah for its own sake. Blessed are you, Adonai, who teaches Torah to your people Israel.
Baruch atah Adonai, hamlamed Torah le'amo Yisrael.
We continue with Ashrei on page 223.
Ashrei yoshvei beitecha, od yehalelucha sela. Ashrei yoshvei beitecha, od yehalelucha sela. Ashrei, Ashrei, Ashrei yoshvei beitecha. Ashrei, Ashrei, Ashrei yoshvei beitecha. Happy are those who dwell in your house, they shall sing your praises forever. Happy are those who dwell in your house, they shall sing your praises forever. They shall sing your praises forever.
We continue on page 224. Yikada ve'yikadash shemei Rabbah
Amen.
ve'amadi ve'rach yirutei ve'yamlich malchutei ve'chayechon uvyomechon uchayei kol beit Yisrael. Bakala, bakala, uvisman kariv, ve'imeru, amen. Yehi shmei rabba mevarach, le'alam ul'alme almaya, yitbarach, yitbarach, ve'yishabach, ve'yipar, ve'yirolam, ve'yitnaseh, ve'yithadar, ve'yit'aleh, ve'yithalel, shmei kudisha, brichu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata da'amiran ve'alma ve'imeru. Amen. Please rise. Baruch et Adonai Hamvarach.
Baruch Adonai Hamvarach Le'olam Va'ed.
Praise Adonai, to whom all praise is due forever. Praise be Adonai,
To whom our praise is due, now and forever.
Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Baruchu et Adonai, Hamevorach, Baruch Adonai, Hamevorach, Hamevorach, Le'olam Va'ed. Hamevorach, Hamevorach, Le'olam Va'ed.
Please be seated.
It is a custom here at Shir Hadash to invite those recent and upcoming B'nai Mitzvah students to join our Bat Mitzvah on the Bima for our prayer of creation, Yotzer Or. At this time, I want to do that, and I know that there are some members of Kaylin's friends and family who just had their bar Bat Mitzvah. I'm going to invite you up. You may not know the words. That's totally fine. But come on up just so Kaylin can feel supported by you guys as well. So if you've had a recent and upcoming B'nai Mitzvah, I invite you to come to the Bima.
You, Braden.
Braden's like, guilty as charged.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Yotzer or v'rei choshech, Oseh shalom shalom v'rei et hakol. Yotzer or v'rei choshech, Oseh shalom shalom v'rei et hakol. We continue on page 231.
Love your neighbor as yourself. You said, and light blinded we saw. that inner and outer worlds are one, as you are one. We spoke and we wrote. You spoke and we wrote. We reached for you down the centuries, your light moving before us. As we climbed, fell back, and climbed again, your Sinai of life.
Baruch atah Adonai, habocher be'amo Yisrael be'ahava.
I got water on my binder. Okay, please rise. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem, Kivod Malchuto, Leolam Vaed. Please be seated. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha u'b'chol nafshecha u'b'chol me'odecha ve'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher Anochi mitzavecha hayom al levavecha v'shinatam levanecha v'dibarta bam v'shivtecha b'beitecha u'mlechtecha b'derech u'shochbecha u'kumecha u'kshartam me'od ayadecha v'hayu letotafot b'neinecha u'chtavtam al mezuzot beitecha u'visharecha leman tiskeru ve'asitem et kol mitzvotai v'yitem kedoshim le'Elohechem ani Adonai Elohechem asher hotzeiti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim lihiyot lachem le'Elohim ani Adonai Elohechem. We continue on page 239.
The eternal truth is that you alone are God, and there is none else. May the righteous of all nations rejoice in your love and exalt in your justice. Let them beat their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks. Let nation not lift up sword against nation, nor learn war anymore. You shall not hate your brother or your sister in your heart. The stranger that sojourns with you shall be accepted as your equal. For you were strangers in the land of Egypt. Why do you crush my people and oppress the poor? Asked God. We know that the Eternal One defends the poor and upholds the rights of the needy. Praise to God Most High. Blessed is God and deserving of blessing.
Ya ba ba bim bim bam, ya ba 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 bim bam, ya ba ba bim bim bam, ya ba 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 bim bam. Ay 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 ay, ya ba 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 bim bam. Ay 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 ay, ya ba 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 bim bam. Mi chamocha bailim Adonai. Mi kamocha nedar bakodesh no radihilot o sefele no radihilot o sefele shira hadasha shibechu geuli leshimcha asafar chaya yachad hodu, 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 v'himlechu ve'amru,
Adonai Imloch leolam va'ed. Adonai Imloch leolam va'ed.
Please rise.
Zu Yisrael Uma ve'ezrat Yisrael uvidei chinumecha Yehuda ve'Yisrael Go'aleinu Adonai tzevahot shemo Gatos Yisrael Baruch atah Adonai Gal Yisrael.
Please rise as we continue on page 244 and then continue on the even numbered pages. Adonai sefatar tiftach ufiyah ki tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, Elohei avoteinu, ve'imotenu. Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el HaGadol, HaGibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, V'konei HaKol, V'zocher Hasdei Avot, V'imahot, Umevi Geulah Livnei Bnehem, Leman Shemo Be'ahava, Melech Hozer Umoshia Umagen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham, Ve'ezrat Sarah, Atah Gibor Le'olam Adonai, Mechayat Holata, Rav Lehoshia, Mechakel Chayim Bechesed, Mechaye HaKol Berachamim Rabim, Somech Noflim Verofei Cholim, Umatir Asurim, Umekayem Emunato, Lishenei Afar, Micha Mocha Baal Gevurot, Umido Melach, Melech Memid, Umechayel, Umatzmiach Yeshua, V'ne'eman atah le'achayot hakol, Baruch atah Adonai, Mechayei hakol.
Ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya נקדש את שמך בעולם, כשם שמקדישים אותו בשמי מרום, ככתוב היה נביאך, וקרא זה אל זה ואמר, קדוש, 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 אדוני צבאות, מלוא כל הארץ, Adir adirenu, Adonai Adonai Adonenu, Mahadir Shimcha Bechol Haaretz, Baruch Kevod Adonai Mimkomo, Echad Hu Eloheinu, Hu Avinu Hu Malkeinu, Hu Moshienu Vehu Yashmienu, Berachamav Le'enei Kol Chai, Ani Adonai Elohechem, Yimloch Adonai Le'olam, Elohai Zion, Lidor Vador. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah.
Baruch Ata Adonai Ha'el HaKadosh. Seated. We're continuing on page 250 with a song for the Sabbath. The chorus repeats often, so please join me.
Yismechu v'malechutecha, shomrei, shomrei, shomrei Shabbat, borei oneg Shabbat. Yismechu v'malechutecha, shomrei, shomrei, shomrei Shabbat, borei oneg Shabbat. Mekadeshei, mekadeshei shevi Shabbat, kulam yisbehu v'yitanbu mituvecha Shabbat. Yismechu v'malechutecha, shomrei, shomrei, shomrei Shabbat, borei oneg Shabbat. Yismechu v'malechutecha, shomrei, shomrei, shomrei Shabbat, borei oneg Shabbat. V'hashvi'i ratzita bo v'kidashto Shabbat. Chemtat yamim oto karata Shabbat. Yismechu v'malechutecha, shomrei, shomrei, shomrei Shabbat, borei oneg Shabbat. Yismechu v'malechutecha, shomrei, shomrei, shomrei Shabbat, borei oneg Shabbat. Zecher lema'aseh bereishit Shabbat. Zecher lema'aseh bereishit Shabbat. Yismechu v'malechutecha, shomrei, shomrei, shomrei Shabbat, borei oneg Shabbat. Yismechu v'malechutecha, shomrei, shomrei, shomrei Shabbat, borei oneg Shabbat.
We're continuing on page 253.
Where has this week vanished? Is it lost forever? Will I ever recover anything from it? The joy of life, the unexpected victory, the realized hope, the task accomplished? Will I ever be able to banish the memory of pain, the sting of defeat, the heaviness of boredom? On this day, let me keep for a while what must drift away. On this day, let me be free of the burden that must return. On this day, Shabbat abide. Help me to withdraw for a while from the flight of time, contain the retreat of the hours and days from the grasp of frantic life. Let me learn to pause, if only for this day. Let me find peace on this day. Let me enter into a quiet world this day. On this day, Shabbat abide.
Baruch atah Adonai Mekadesh HaShabbat. We're continuing on page 255.
On this holy Shabbat, may we draw nearer to life, to peace, and to joy. May we find true rest, holiness in our deeds, worth in our study of Torah. Let us feed on the love of goodness. Let us drink from the love of goodness. Restrain our thirst for excess, and cleanse our hearts to serve life well. On this holy Shabbat, may we draw nearer in life, in peace, and in joy. Baruch atah Adonai, she'otcha levad cha baracha navad.
We're continuing on page 257.
For the expanding grandeur of creation, worlds known and unknown, galaxies beyond galaxies, filling us with awe and challenging our imaginations.
Modim anachnu lach.
For this fragile planet Earth, its times and tides, its sunsets and seasons.
Modim anachnu lach.
For the joy of human life, its wonders and surprises, its hopes and achievements.
Modim anachnu lach.
For human community, our common past and future, hope, our oneness transcending all separation, our capacity to work for peace and justice for the midst of hostility and oppression.
Modim anachnu lach.
For our high hopes and noble causes, for faith without fanaticism, for our understanding of views not shared.
Modim anachnu lach.
For all who have labored and suffered for a fairer world, who have lived so others might live in dignity and freedom.
Modim anachnu lach.
For human liberties and sacred rights, for opportunities to change and grow, to affirm and choose.
Modim anachnu lach.
We pray that we may not live by our fears, but by our hopes, not by our words, but by our deeds.
Blessed are you, Adonai. Your name is goodness, and you are worthy of thanksgiving.
Baruch atah Adonai, hatov shimcha ulecha na'el lehodot.
We continue on page 258. Sim shalom tova uvracha chen v'chesed v'rachamim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael amecha Barchenu yotzreinu kulanu ke'echad be'or panecha ki be'or panecha natata lanu Adonai Eloheinu sim shalom tova uvracha chen v'chesed v'rachamim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol Yisrael amecha Torah chaim ve'avat chesed ve'avat chesed utzedakah uvracha ve'rachamim ve'chaim ve'shalom sim shalom
tova uvracha
chen v'chesed ve'rachamim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ועל כל ישראל עמך, וטוב בעיניך לברך את עמך ישראל, בכל עת ובכל שעה, בשלומך שים שלום, שים שלום, טובה וברכה, חן וחסד ורחמים ורחמים עלינו, ועל כל ישראל, ועל כל ישראל עמך.
ברוך אתה אדוני המברך את עמו ישראל בשלום.
We pause for silent meditation.
עושה שלום במרומם, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל, ואמרו אמן. יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל, יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל, יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל, יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל, יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל.
At the core of our Shabbat morning service is our Torah service. It's here where Kaylin will chant from our Torah, our particular Torah portion for the week. She will lift up her own words of commentary and connect herself from generation to generation. With that in mind, as we prepare for our Torah service, I would like to invite up her grandparents, Ricky and Kunjai Sunalef, Kwanjai, to be our ark openers, as well as Craig and Linda Pearl, Gordon and Sophia, as well as Kaylin, as we pass the Torah from generation to generation. And I ask the congregation to rise.
שלושה דברים, שלושה דברים, שלושה דברים, העולם עומד. שלושה דברים, שלושה דברים, שלושה דברים, העולם עומד. על התורה ועל העבודה ועל גמילות חסדים. על התורה ועל העבודה ועל גמילות חסדים.
Havu godel Eloheinu unu chavod leTorah. Let us declare the greatness of God as we give honor to our Torah.
כי מציון תצא תורה. כי מציון תצא תורה. ודבר אדוני מירושלים. ברוך שנתן תורה, תורה. ברוך
Shema Yachdav.
Lecha Adonai Hagedula ve'hagevura ve'hatiferet ve'hanetzach ve'hahod ki hu b'shamayim u'ba'aretz ki hu b'shamayim u'ba'aretz lecha Adonai hamamlacha ve'amit na'aseh lechol lerosh.
You may be seated.
My Torah portion, Amor, begins with the laws that the priests must follow. These rules included not touching a dead body, except the bodies of an immediate relative. They were to not shave their heads or the side growth of their beards. They also couldn't deliberately cut their skin to leave marks on it or marry women that were divorcees or of a questionable reputation. Finally, priests were not allowed to have any physical defects. Priests had to follow these rules to keep holy or clean. My Torah portion also talks about the offerings or donations that are acceptable for the sanctuary. All offerings donated by Israelites or non-Israelites are accepted. However, if a product has any blemishes or it is contaminated, it must be rejected by the priests. Next, my Torah portion talks about the many holidays God wants the Israelites to celebrate. First comes Shabbat, which is to be celebrated every seventh day of the week. The Israelites must have complete days of rest, meaning no work. Then, on the 14th day of the month Nisan, and for the next 7 days, Pesach or Passover is to be celebrated. During Passover, the first and last days of the holiday are again to be considered as days of rest, in which working is prohibited. Next is Shavuot. Shavuot, or weeks, as it is sometimes considered, is a day in which people bring offerings to the priest. This day is, surprise, a day of no work. After Shavuot, God tells Moses to tell the Israelites to celebrate Rosh Hashanah, or the New Year, another day of no work. 10 days later, the Israelites were told to celebrate Yom Kippur, a day of no work, self-denial, and fasting. Lastly, God tells Moses to tell the Israelites to celebrate Sukkot. The people are to build booths, bring the fruit of the etrog and the leaves of the lulav, and to rest. My portion then briefly states that the Israelites are to bring clear oil of beaten olives to fuel the lamps of the sanctuary, and bake 12 loaves of bread for the sanctuary along with frankincense as a token offering for the bread. The priests were then to eat the loaves. In the last section of the portion, we are taken to an argument between a half-Israelite, half-Egyptian man and an Israelite. The half-Israelite profanes God's name in vain and was therefore placed in custody for breaking one of the commandments. Moses then orders the blasphemer to be stoned to death for saying God's name in vain, also declaring that anyone else who profanes God's name in vain shall be put to death. He also states that if one person murders another, they shall be put to death. This creates the concept fracture for fracture, eye for eye, tooth for tooth. In short, my Torah portion is about laws. It talks about the laws regulating the lives of priests. It mentions what kind of donations and offerings are accepted, goes over the many holidays God tells Moses to tell the Israelites to celebrate, including Shabbat, Passover, Shavuot, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, and Sukkot. In the end, it concludes with the laws dealing with profanity, murder, and the maiming of others. I am chanting from Leviticus chapter 24, verses 10 through 18, because I found it interesting that the half-Israelite, half-Egyptian man was stoned to death for an accident. The concept fracture for fracture, eye for eye, tooth for tooth also made me curious. This concept means that people are punished according to the crime that they committed.
As Kaylin said, she'll be chanting from Leviticus chapter 24, verses 10 through 18. You can follow along in your service booklets on pages 10 and 11.
Ya amdu le sarabat esa shea v'chava v'chaim sisaber ben leb ufredel harishon.
Baruch et Adonai Hamvarach.
Baruch Adonai hamvarach leolam va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hamvarach le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten ha'torah.
Amen.
Amen. Vayetze ben isha Yisraelit vehu ben ish Mitzri v'toch bnei Yisrael vayinatzu v'machaneh ben ha-Yisraelit ve'ish ha-Yisraeli vayikov ben haisha ha-Yisraelit et Hashem vaykalel vayavi'u oto Moshe v'Shem imo shlomit bativri le'matedan vayanichu b'mishmar lifrosh lahem al pi Adonai.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torat et met v'chayei olam nata betochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Okay, I can kiss grandma. We say mazel tov. Ya amor Gedaya le ben Chaim sisaber v'le Sarah hasheni.
Baruch Adonai Hamvara.
Baruch Adonai hamvarach leolam va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hamvara le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech ha'olam asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten ha'torah.
Amen.
Amen. V'daber Adonai el Moshe lemor hotzei et hankalel al michutz l'machaneh v'samchu kol hashomim et yedehem harosho v'ragmu oto kol ha'ida ve'el b'nei Yisrael Tdaber lemor ish ki yikalel Elohav v'nasa cheto.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emed v'hayei olam nata b'tokenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten ha'torah.
Amen. Tamor habachara haba mitzvah chayaleh bat gedaya leb maftir chazak.
Baruch et Adonai Hamvorach.
Baruch Adonai Hambarach Leolam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hambarach Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu Melech HaOlam Asher Bachar Banu Mikol Ha'amim V'natan Lanu Et Torato. Baruch Ata Adonai Notein HaTorah.
Amen.
V'nokei Shem Adonai Mot Yumad Ragam Yirgemuvo Kohaida Kagir Kaizrach Benok Voshem Yumad Yvesh Kiekei Kol Nefesh Adam Mot Yumad Umakei Nefesh Behema Yishamena Nefesh Tachad Nefesh. Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu Melech HaOlam Asher Natan Lanu Torah Temer V'chai Olam Nata B'tochenu. Baruch Ata Adonai Notein HaTorah.
Amen. Ya'amdu Hagmabi v'Hagolelot. Ya'amod Avigdor ben Ephraim v'Shendla. Ta'amod Leah bat Lebu Fredo. We rise as the Torah is lifted. V'zot haTorah asher sam Moshe lifnei bnei Yisrael al pi Adonai b'yad Moshe. V'zot haTorah asher sam Moshe lifnei bnei Israel al pi Adonai b'yad Moshe. Yai lai lai lai, yai lai 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 lai, yai lai 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 lai. Yai lai lai lai, yai lai 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 lai, yai lai 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 lai. You may be seated.
Yeah. My Haftarah comes from Ezekiel chapter 44, verses 15 through 31. The Haftarah is all about the many laws that the priests had to follow. The rules for the priests included wearing special garments when praying or in temple, cutting their hair neatly, not drinking alcohol while performing priestly duties, and being prohibited from marrying women who are divorced or widowed, unless the widow was originally married to a priest. They also cannot own land in Israel or be near a corpse. The only exception is if the corpse was an immediate family. The prophet Ezekiel was a priest during the Babylonian exile in Babylon. Ezekiel knew that the temple in Jerusalem would be rebuilt someday. Because he was a priest, Ezekiel was in a unique position because he knew what the roles of the priests were and knew that some had gone astray. So, Ezekiel addresses rules for the priests and shares his vision of what priesthood can look like in the rebuilt temple. In doing so, he provides a bridge between the past and the future. This Haftarah portion relates to my Torah portion because both talk about laws. I'm not only talking about the laws of priests, in which both sections mention, but also the importance of laws. These laws were created for a reason. Sure, they may seem unreasonable to us, but back then it was what people believed and they thought it was logical. Laws help us follow guidelines to be better versions of ourselves. Without laws, the world would be chaos. These laws helped our ancestors be orderly, and it eventually formed into the laws we have today.
You can find the Haftarah portion on pages 13 and 14 in the smaller booklet.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar b'nviim tovim b'ratzah v'divreihem hane'emarim b'emet. Baruch atah Adonai Habocher B'Torah Uv'Moshe Avdo of Yisrael Amo Unviviei Ha'emet V'Tzedek Ve'yayin Lo Yeshu Kol Kohen Bevo'am El Hechazer Hapnimi Ve'almanah Urusha Lo Yikhu Lahem Lenashim Ki Imetulot Mizera Beit Yisrael Ve'almanah Asher Tiyeh Almanah Mikohen Yikachu V'etami Yoru Bein Kodesh Lecho Uvein Tameh Letahor Yodium Ve'ariv Hema Ya'amdu Lemishpat B'mishpatai Yishpetu Ve'torotai Ve'chukotai B'chol ma'atai Yishmoru Ve'shabtotai Yekadeshu Ve'el Beit Adam Lo Yavo Letama Ki Im Le'av U'em Uvein Uvad Le'ach Ulachot Asher Lo Hayta Le'ish Yitamau V'acharei Torato Shivat Yamim Yisperulo Uvyom Bo El HaKodesh El HaChazer Hapnimit Lesharet BaKodesh Yagri Chatato Neum Adonai Elohim V'halita Lehem Lenachala Ani Nechalatam Ve'achusa Lo Titnu Lahem V'Yisrael Ani Achusatam. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Zoar kol haolamim Tzadik b'chol hadorot Ha'el ha'ne'eman Ha'omer ve'oseh Hamdaber umkayem Shekol devarav emet v'tzedek Al ha'torah ve'al ha'avodah ve'al ha'nevim ועל יום השבת הזה שנתת לנו, אדוני אלוהינו, לקדושה ולמנוחה, לכבוד ולתפארת הכל. אדוני אלוהינו, אנחנו מודים לך ומברכים אותך, יתברך שמך בפי כל חי תמיד לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני מקדש השבת. My Torah portion that I read is a story about a fight between an Israelite man and a man that has an Israeli mother and an Egyptian father. In the midst of the fight, the half-Israelite and half-Egyptian man says God's name in vain. As his punishment, he is stoned to death. A new concept arises from this incident, known as fracture for fracture, eye for eye, tooth for tooth. According to my Torah portion, if I curse during a fight with my brother, I have to be killed. Sounds logical, right? The only thing that I got out of my Torah portion was more questions. Why was the man severely punished? Why does the Torah mention he's mixed? What were they arguing about? But the biggest question I had is, should we solve violence with violence? When the Torah talks about eye for eye, tooth for tooth, I was first confused at what that meant. Looking back at it again, I realized it meant, if you do something to me, I'll do that exact same back. So according to this, if I steal one of my cousin's, Braden's goat, Braden has the right to steal one of my goats. Another example is if someone beats up my friend, I should beat up the person that beat up my friend, right? To me, examples like these don't sit right with me. I feel like we shouldn't solve violence with violence. It doesn't make sense. Let's take the musical West Side Story, for example. In the musical, Bernardo stabs Riff during the rumble. In response to that, Tony, Riff's best friend, stabs Bernardo. Both Riff and Bernardo die, and nothing gets solved. Although something did come out of that rumble, more murder. In the end, Bernardo's best friend, Chino, decides to shoot Tony out of hatred and revenge. This story clearly is an example of eye for eye. You killed my best friend, so I will kill you. Personally, there was one time two people, let's call them B and Nellie, were really mean to this guy named Ollie. Ollie looked like he wanted to be left alone, but B and Nellie were not giving him space. At this moment, someone was bullying my friend, so I decided to bully them back. I called the two people names, which eventually made one of them cry. It was never my intention to make someone cry. All I wanted was for them to stop making fun of my friend. Looking back on this situation, I now realize the best thing I should have done was to tell the two people to stop. Instead of bullying the two people and not defending my friend, I talked to them and tried to understand why they were doing what they did. So if eye for eye is not the right answer, what is? The best way to solve a problem is by talking it out. There is an idiom: actions speak louder than words. But as we can see, our actions sometimes lead to more consequences. I think that we should start recognizing a new idiom: words sometimes speak louder than actions. Using our words can make a much bigger difference than using our fists to solve problems. Going back to West Side Story, if Tony worked harder to stop the rumble instead of letting his anger get to him, everything could have been solved. It's better that we talk it out with one another rather than fighting. Why hold a grudge if there are other things we can do to solve problems? My portion taught me that the concept fracture for fracture, eye for eye, tooth for tooth is not always the best solution to solve problems. Instead of using violence, we should talk it out and try to better understand each other. I keep talking about talk it out. What does that mean? To talk it out, we are understanding how the people involved in the situation feel. Are we angry, upset, joyful? No one knows unless you express your emotions through words. Something that I want everyone in this room to learn is how to better express your emotions. Venting to a friend with their consent, being open about your struggles, and talking to a licensed therapist are great ways to be more open about your emotions. Learning these things can help us express ourselves, but most importantly, help us become better people.
Yasher Koach, Kaylin. Those were very, very powerful words, and we are so glad that you shared those with the congregation. At this time, I'd like to invite up Mom and Dad to come back on the bima to read a prayer celebrating a blessing that celebrates this particular moment in your life, the Shehechianu.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, shehekianu, v'kiyamanu, v'higianu, lahazman hazeh.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shehechianu v'kimanu v'higianu lazman hazeh. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shehechianu v'kimanu v'higianu lazman hazeh.
We rise once more as our ark is opened, and we return the Torah to the ark, and the Keter and I will bestow a blessing upon Kaylin. Kaylin, first of all, take a look at the congregation. All of these people are here for you. People on the East Coast came, people on the West Coast came, all the way up to Kalamazoo. They are here to celebrate you. And that is something that you should hold on to as you become a bat mitzvah this morning. Now, you taught us an important lesson. You taught us that sometimes the punishment doesn't fit the crime. And I think that that lesson really is something that is indicative of who you are. You're a person with compassion. You're a person with drive, persistence, a person who cares for the other in such a genuine and special way. I've seen that in you, especially as a madricha, as a teacher's assistant with our kids. I've seen that with your smile when you come into my office and we've worked on your speeches together. And I've seen that in so many ways. And Winston won't admit it, but you're a good big sister too. And I've seen that too. And all of those gifts and all of those skills are something that I want you to hold on to and keep with you and continue to have those things shine into the world. Now, Cantor and I want you to know that our doors are always open. Don't be a stranger. We look forward to seeing you continue to grow and continue to shape your own Jewish identity and personal identity. And on this moment, we like to bestow upon you the oldest blessing within our tradition.
Yivarchech Adonai ve'yishmerech.
May God bless you and keep you always.
Yaher Adonai panav elayich v'chunech.
May the light of God shine upon you so you can shine your light unto the world.
Yisa Adonai panav elayich ve'asem lach shalom. Shalom.
May God grant you strength, wholeness, comfort, and peace as you go on your way. And we say, Amen.
Eitz chaim hi lamachazikim ba b'tom necheha me'ushar deracheha darchei noam b'chol netivoteha shalom ashivenu Adonai elecha v'nashuva hadish hadish yameinu hadish yameinu kekedem. You may be seated.
So, how do you organize your day? Now, when asked that question, most people think of all the things that they have to do. And like many of us, I try my very best to make a list every single morning of the people that I need to touch base with, the projects that need my attention, that personal work like exercise that I need to get done. And like some of us, I feel like it's been a great day when I check off most of those tasks that I put down. And I know it's been an awesome day on that very, very rare occasion when I check off everything. And on the flip side, I don't feel really good when I don't get everything that I wanted to get done, or when that list is so long that it becomes even longer at the end of the day than it was at the beginning. It's no wonder that I or anyone else judges the quality of our days by what we accomplish. That's because there are only so many seconds in a minute, so many hours in a day. And as the psalmist teaches, the span of our life is 70 years, or if we are strong, 80 years, and they pass speedily like a flutter. And as time flies, our pressure to accomplish everything, to get things done, becomes even more real. So we can often obsess over how we are organizing our time, how we're prioritizing our time, so we can accomplish as many things as possible and cross those things off our list. Now, it seems that the most meaningful life is one where there is perfect time management. But this new COVID world that we are living in reminds us of something that we may have known but didn't really know how to verbalize it. It might not be our time that actually needs to be managed. It's our souls. Our rhythm of life has been consistently changed, and many of us have shifted our thinking about those things that really matter most in life. especially our health and the well-being of the people that we love most. It took being cut off from each other for us to rediscover that desire for connection. So instead of just managing our time, we began to manage our souls. Now, spiritually, Judaism has been accused over and over again as a path of life that feels crushed by that unending to-do list. Our mitzvot, our commandments, have been construed time and again as the unending set of demands placed upon the world by God. And in Judaism, the conversation around obligation created the spiritual attitude to fulfill those things that are part of God's checklist for us. Now, the Talmud often refers to one who has performed a religious act as being yotze, freeing themselves from those daily requirements of life in the covenant. Now, the problem with this mindset is that it can boil spiritual life down to a to-do list. So instead of focusing on how much a mitzvah brings meaning and vitality and purpose, we become so focused on doing it the right way and precisely at the right time. So sometimes our tradition can also focus too much on those things about time management, but not about soul management. And while the book of Leviticus, the book that we are reading right now in our Torah cycle, cares deeply about times and procedures and rules, there is also no book of the Torah that is more focused on soul management. The sacrificial rites found in the very first chapters of the book of Leviticus are prescriptions to heal our inner lives. Further in the book, the messiness of sickness and death are not shied away from. Rather, they are embraced by making what could be shameful very public. The need for self-mastery through encouragement to become holy like God and act godly has as much to do with our inner selves as they do with the outcomes of our choices. And in this week's Torah portion, Leviticus takes on the failed notion that time management is enough to create meaning. Instead, we find in our portion our sacred calendar. God lays out the calendar for the year and puts the responsibility of making them sacred upon us. God gives us those blueprints for holy moments, opportunities to bring to surface that soul work that's needed to make our lives more meaningful. And what follows is a calendar to schedule that deep work of dealing with our own mortality, fragility, our spirit. In other words, it's all about our soul management. And we know, for example, that when we mess up and we say things that we should have not said or we hurt people that we love, we apologize. And we know that making amends is not just another task like fixing a leak or washing the dishes. Everybody is created in the image of God. And finding just the time to repair a relationship won't cut it. We make time. And it's in the book of Leviticus that gives us Yom Kippur, that day of at-one-ment, the day of atonement, the day where we manage our soul to return to the lost part of our relationships with each other. And we don't need religion to tell us how uncertain life is and for the short amount of time that we live in to fill our lives with joy. It's hard to get around to those most joyous moments. And that's why Leviticus gives us Sukkot, that harvest festival, a holiday celebrating uncertainty of life by filling our shaky shacks with good food and amazing people. And in that boundless world with endless tasks, it's easy to forget where we came from and how we came from those people. We are all products of our parents as they were of theirs. And that train of dreaming has resulted in our own existence. And that's why Leviticus gives us those rituals of Passover that have forged us into a people and serve as a template for what freedom truly is. And maybe more than any other reminder, there's times when we feel overly much that our self-worth is tied to our net worth. And that's why the Torah gives us Shabbat, demanding that we free ourselves from the ambition to get ahead, requiring us to just take a moment to enjoy life as it is. Now, we don't need religion to do soul management, but having this sacred calendar certainly helps. Far from being an endless list of tasks, the Torah itself is a blueprint for our own management. Judaism, especially this book of Leviticus, wants us to build a community that prioritizes those parts of us that make us truly human. Our fragility, our emotions, our spirit, our desire to pursue justice and be holy. And that's what makes Judaism an extraordinary way of living life. Shabbat Shalom.
We are continuing in the back of our prayer book on page 645. Lechi lach to a land that I will show you. Lech lecha to a place you do not know. On your journey I will bless you, and you shall be a blessing. You
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שהוא שם חלקנו לאחד את שמו, וגור עלינו להמליך מלכותו, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא.
You may be seated. We're continuing on page 591.
May we gain wisdom in our lives, overflowing like a river with understanding. Loved, each of us, for the peace we bring to others. May our deeds exceed our speech, and may we never lift up our hand, but to conquer fear and doubt and despair. Rise up like the sun, O God, over all humanity. Cause light to go forth over all the lands between the seas, and light up the universe with joy of wholeness, of freedom, and of peace.
The meditation before the Kaddish can be found on page 592, and the Kaddish itself can be found on page 598. When I die, give what's left of me away to children and old men that wait to die. And if you need to cry, cry for your brother walking the street beside you. And when you need me, put your arms around anyone and give them what you need to give me. I want to leave you something better than words or sounds, and look for me in the people that I've known or loved. And if you cannot give me away, at least let me live in your eyes and not in your mind. You can love me best by letting hands touch hands, by letting bodies touch bodies, and by letting go of children that need to be free. Love doesn't die. People do. So when all that's left of me is love, give me away. On the Shabbat, our congregation offers its condolences to Galit Lipsitz Goldenthal on the death of her father, Eliad Foner Lipsitz. We also remember those loved ones whom death has recently taken from us. David Schwartz, Rhoda Fryman, David Molstad, Richard Kipperman, Leslie Phillips, Judy Kalmus, Leo Feingold, Ron Wolk, Tamara Noten, Mimi Levy, James C. Price, Colette Kaplowitz, Rita Smith, David Corman, J. Guadalupe Chavez, Dr. David K. Burke, Elizabeth Ludwig, Bernard Kennis, Charles Stone, Rima Zaratsky, Leonard Popowitz, Mark Elliott, Esther Young-Wedner, Marjorie Hart, Roseanne Lewitt, Morton J. Friedberg, Estelle Levine, Larry Lisenby. We also add those names of those loved ones who passed away at this season in years past. Ruth Aaron, Marianne Eppinger, Samuel Brunner, Darwin Chien, Bernice Clark, Margie Gordon, Norman Wilstein, Doris Marion Goldberg, and Michael Orzek. If you would like to add the name of someone who passed away recently or whose yahrzeit falls on this Shabbat, I invite you to rise and do so at this time.
Barbara Meyer Gustern.
Zichronam Livracha, may the memories of each and every person that we have named aloud and within our hearts be for a blessing. Supporting those who mourn and in the memory of the martyrs of our people, we rise together as Kaddish is recited. Yitkadal v'yitkadash Shemei Rabbah, be'amad yivrach yirutei v'amlich malchutei, D'chayachon uvyomechon uvchaye d'chol Beit Yisrael, Ba'agala uvizman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei Shemei Rabbah mevarach le'olam olamei almaya, Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yinaseh, v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal Shemei d'kudesha b'richu, le'olam min kol birchata v'shirata, Tushbachata v'nechemata, damiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya v'chaim, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol yoshvei tevel v'imru amen. May the source of peace and peace to those who mourn, and may the source of comfort send comfort to all who are bereaved. And we say together,
Amen.
Please be seated. At this time, I'd like to invite up Mindy Laponis, who is a member of our congregation and representing our congregation. She's going to share with us some announcements and then present some gifts to Kaylin.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Kulanu Learning and Kulanu Hebrew Sunday, as well as Kulanu Hebrew and Jet and Confirmation are all in session this week. On Tuesday, May 10th, Shir Hadash will hold Lunch and Learn on Zoom at 11:30 a.m. The subject is It's Good to Be Mel Brooks. As a comic writer, actor, and director, Mel Brooks embodies the essence of Jewish comedy. This month's program will celebrate Mel's life and career, from his beginnings as a comic and television writer to the work of his legendary motion pictures, and then on to a Tony Award-winning Broadway career at the age of 76. Please register on the temple calendar for the Zoom link. On Friday, May 13th, we'll hold Shabbat services in the sanctuary and on live stream at 7:30 p.m. with Rabbi Schwartz and lay cantor Mark Allen. On Saturday, May 14th, happy hour and Havdalah will take place here at the patio at 6 p.m. Summer is coming. Bring the whole family and join us to welcome a new week and a new season. We'll have tacos, margaritas, and time to schmooze for the adults and a bounce house for the kids. This event is free. Please register on the temple calendar. We can't wait to see you. And finally, on Sunday, May 15th, the congregational meeting will occur here in the sanctuary and also on Zoom at 10 a.m. At this annual meeting, we will vote on the new slate of board officers, approve the budget for the coming year, and hear updates about welcoming Rabbi Nico, the Cantor celebration, and more. please go to the temple calendar for more information and to register for this important meeting. Immediately following the congregational meeting, we'll have Israeli folk dancing with Donna Frankel in the Oneg room. The adult education and membership committees are hosting this event. Delight in music, learn some dances, and enjoy a light lunch with new and old friends. Please register online. All right, Kaylin, come on up for your gift. So Kaylin, Mazel Tov on becoming a bat mitzvah today. When we met a few weeks ago, you relayed to me how today was such a meaningful day for you, such an important and significant rite of passage. You've been studying for many years, and in the last 6 months have studied many hours per week for today, fitting that in with all of the other things your dad mentioned that you do earlier. It's really clear that you're a hardworking and dedicated person. You're motivated, and you really dedicate yourself to those things that are important to you. Those traits have come through today. You did an amazing job. So I'd love, and I'm very honored, to present to you the gifts that you'll be receiving from your congregation here at Shir Hadash. We have a Kiddush cup, a certificate commemorating today, and prayer books. I hope you find these items useful as you move through your Jewish life, wherever it may take you, and that they help you remember fondly your time here at Temple. So Mazel Tov to you and your parents and the rest of your family. Thank you. Thank you.
Immediately following our closing song, I'm going to invite up Gordon and Sophia and Winston to join us back on the bima for our Kiddush and our Motzi. And then after Kiddush and Motzi, as you exit the sanctuary, please put your prayer books where you found them. And I snuck in, and there looks like to be a beautiful Kiddush lunch in the Oneg room that everybody is invited to. Our closing song this morning is Ode of Shalom Elenu on page 657. Please rise.
Ode of Shalom Elenu, Ode of Shalom Elenu, Ode of Shalom Elenu, Ve'al Kulam. Ode of Shalom Elenu, Ode of Shalom Elenu, Ode of Shalom Elenu, Ve'al Kulam. Salam Aleinu ve'al kol ha'olam. Salam, salam. Shalom Aleinu, Ode of Shalom Elenu, Ode of Shalom Elenu, Ve'al Kulam. Ode of Shalom Aleinu, Ode of Shalom Elenu, Ode of Shalom Elenu, Ve'al Kulam.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shalom.
Hold it and do the blessing for the wine.
Right over here.
It's grape juice though, Kaylin.
Eloheinu melech haolam, borei pori hagafes.
Amen.
It's grape juice, Kaylin.
Sanitary? Yes, it's sanitary. Nobody else has touched it. Okay. Take a piece of bread. You can hold it while you say the blessing. Come back over here.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz,
B'te'avon.
Once again, Shabbat
Mazel
Shalom
tov,
and
Shabbat
Mazel Tov.
Shalom. Put it down right there.